The sky above Hillside Cemetery looked like it hadn't decided whether to rain or not. It just hung there, low and swollen, like a sigh held too long. The wind picked at my coat, but I didn't move. I just stood at the edge of the grave, staring at the casket like it was a stranger. There were 6 other people there. None of them looked familiar. A nurse from the assisted living home, a neighbor who spoke too softly, an old man in a fishing cap, who might have been a friend once. I didn't ask. The priest read from a laminated card. He said words like dedicated, quiet strength, and devoted in his own way. I wondered if that last part was meant for me. He didn't know I was his daughter. No one had asked. I hadn't seen my father in 20 years. The last time was in a school hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing above us. After my middle school play, he'd arrived late, stood in the back, and left right after. I chased him to the parking lot. He told me I was fine, but maybe not loud enough, and then drove away. A week later, I learned he'd moved out of state. I used to write him letters, dozens. I sent them to the P.O. box he'd left behind. I never got one back. At 13, you learn fast when someone's gone for good. So I didn't cry at the funeral. I didn't speak. I just waited for the dirt to fall, nodding politely when hands were shaken, when someone whispered, "He was proud of you," always talked about his daughter. That's when the groundskeeper approached. He was old, with a wide belly and kind eyes that didn't quite meet mine. "You, Claire?" he asked. I nodded, unsure whether to confirm or deny it. He handed me a small cardboard box, sealed with worn tape. "He left this with me a couple years ago. Said you might come one day. Said it was okay if you didn't." I took the box. It was surprisingly light. In the motel room that night, I sat on the carpet and opened it slowly, like it might explode. Inside was a metal key on a simple ring, a photograph of me missing my front teeth and grinning like I'd just won the lottery, and a note. "Cabin. If you're ready, I hope you will be." The handwriting was unmistakable, slanted, rushed. The D in my name looped too wide. I stared at the photo. I remembered that day. The watermelon, the sunburn, him lifting me onto his shoulders, before the silences. Before I learned how to live without expecting anything from him. I considered throwing it all in the trash. I considered driving to the airport and going back to San Francisco, back to my apartment with its carefully neutral furniture and quiet, undemanding job. Instead, the next morning I checked out and drove 2 hours north into the trees. The road grew thinner, rougher, until my phone lost service and the GPS blinked into silence. All I had was a memory, a steep turn, a cluster of birch trees, the smell of moss after rain. Somehow, I found it. The cabin was smaller than I remembered. Faded paint, sagging porch, windows crusted with pine needles and dust. But it was still there, real, waiting. I stood in front of the door for a long time. The key was cold in my palm. The lock turned, with a reluctant click. Inside, the air was stale and still. Dust hovered in the shafts of light that slipped through the blinds. Everything was exactly where it had always been. The green plaid couch, the cracked wood stove, the table with one short leg. But it was the desk in the corner that stopped me. On it sat a single envelope. "Claire, age." I reached for it with a hand I couldn't keep steady. It was sealed. My name in his handwriting. Blue ink, slightly smudged. I opened the drawer. There were more. Stacked carefully, year by year. Claire, age 15. Claire, age 6. All the way to Claire, age 20 letters. One for every year he missed. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by the scent of old paper and wood smoke, staring at a version of my life that had existed all this time without me. Then I sank to the floor and wept, for the girl who stopped waiting, for the man who never stopped writing, for everything that could have been. The first letter was short, the kind of short that hurts more than it heals. "Claire, age. I missed your birthday again." I'm not going to pretend I had a good reason. I didn't. I could say I didn't know where to send a card, or that I didn't want to confuse you. But the truth is, I didn't know if I had the right. You probably hate me. Or worse, you don't think about me at all. Still, I couldn't let today pass without writing something, even if you never read it. Even if this letter just gathers dust in this cabin like everything else I've left behind.
I hope you had cake.
I hope you had someone who clapped when you blew out the candles. I hope you laughed. I love you. I always have. Dad. I read it twice, then 3 times, then folded it back along the creases and placed it beside me like it might vanish if I held it too long. The fire in the hearth hadn't burned out from the night before. I added 2 logs, then reached for the next envelope. Claire, age 50. You're probably rolling your eyes at this. Maybe you think I'm a coward. You wouldn't be wrong. I wonder what your voice sounds like now. I bet it's deeper, steadier. You used to have that high, breathy laugh that filled up a whole room. I still hear it sometimes. Usually when I'm alone, I picture you with headphones on, ignoring everyone, maybe writing angry poems in the margins of your school books. Your mother always said you'd be a firecracker when you grew up. She was right. I don't know what I'm doing. I keep hoping that writing to you will be enough. But it never is. If there's one thing I want you to know, it's that I think about you every single day, and I'm sorry that thinking isn't the same as being there. Love. Dad. I laid the letter on the floor beside the first. The heat from the fire brushed my arms, but it couldn't get to the place that had gone cold inside me. How many nights had I stared at the ceiling, wondering if he even remembered my name, and here were the answers. Sitting quietly, waiting for me to be ready. I opened more. Claire, age 6. If you're anything like your mother, you've got a spine made of steel and a mouth that scares boys off in seconds. Good. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch. I'm sorry I won't be there to yell at your first boyfriend, or teach you how to change a tire, or sit in the bleachers and pretend I know how sports work. You probably think it doesn't matter, that you're fine without me, and maybe you are, but I wasn't fine without you. Claire. Age 6. I tried to drive to your town last summer, made it halfway, turned around in a gas station parking lot when I saw a dad helping his daughter pick out a slushie. I watched them for 5 minutes. Couldn't stop crying. I know that's pathetic, but it's true. I don't know how to be a part of your life anymore. But I'm still writing, still hoping you find these one day. Love always. Dad. I stopped reading. I had to. There was something dangerous about the ache crawling into my chest. Like if I read one more line, I might drown in everything I'd forgotten to feel. I stepped outside. The air was sharp with winter. Even though spring had started to nudge its way in, the trees stood like old guards, quiet and solemn, their branches whispering things I couldn't quite hear. I stood on the porch and breathed. I remembered this place, how I used to run barefoot through the grass, how he'd toss me into the air and catch me like I was made of light, how we used to count the stars before bed, lying on the roof, pretending the world wasn't about to fall apart. I sat on the step and closed my eyes, and then I opened another letter. Claire. Age. I wonder if you're walking across a stage today, holding a diploma with that stubborn chin held high. I would give anything to be in the back row, clapping like an idiot. Just one glimpse. One moment. I'd bottle it and keep it for the rest of my life. I'm proud of you. I don't need to see it to know it. You were always going to be something incredible. You didn't need me to become who you are. But I needed you more than I ever said. I hope you're happy. I hope you're free. Love always. Dad. I held that letter against my chest until the sun dipped below the trees and the wind started to howl through the empty woods. Then I went inside and kept reading. The sun rose pale and thin through the trees, a quiet light that cast long, gentle shadows across the cabin floor. I sat cross-legged in front of the desk, fingers sifting slowly through the stack of letters. My eyes were raw, my chest hollowed out like the inside of a bell. Each envelope felt like a breath I wasn't sure I could take. And then I remembered the notebook, the one I'd found in the hidden compartment beneath the wooden panel in the wall, a leather-bound thing brittle and creased. The cover was worn almost smooth, except for 5 words written in shaky ink. If she finds these, she deserves the truth. I opened to the first page. April 17th, the day he left. The handwriting was uneven. Parts were scratched out, rewritten, scrawled again. This wasn't a letter. It was a reckoning. I left this morning, packed up before the sun. Didn't say goodbye, not properly. She was sleeping on the couch. Her arm was wrapped around a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. I stood there for 10 minutes just watching her breathe. Her mother came downstairs. She didn't say a word, just nodded, like we both knew this was the only way. I told myself it was temporary. 1 week, 2 at most. I'd come back when the air wasn't so tight in my lungs, when I could walk into the house without feeling like I was about to drown. But even as I wrote that down, I knew I was lying. I turned the page. She ran after me. Claire. Her voice cracked when she said my name. I told her I'd be back soon, and she smiled like she believed me. That's the part that kills me, the smile. She believed me. I drove away and didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not because I wasn't thinking of her, but because I was afraid if I saw her standing there, I'd turn around. And if I turned around, I didn't know if I'd ever find the courage to leave again. There was a break in the writing. A smudge of ink like a tear had landed on the page and dried there. I was weak. I was selfish. I was scared. Pick one. They're all true. But it wasn't because I didn't love her. It was because I did. I closed the notebook. My hands shook as I placed it gently beside the letters. The fire in the hearth had gone out, sometime in the early morning. But I didn't move to relight it. I just sat in the stillness, staring at the years piled around me. Then, slowly, I reached for the next envelope. Claire, age, you're probably in college now. Maybe working part-time somewhere. A bookstore, I hope. You always loved the way books smelled. Sometimes I wonder if you still draw. You used to cover every surface with those swirly patterns. You said they made you feel less alone. I used to imagine what it'd be like to bump into you in the street by accident. Just see you walking by. No idea who I was. Would I look like a stranger to you? Would you feel anything? You're probably not the same girl I left. But I hope you still believe in things. In art, in kindness, in yourself. Even if you never believe in me again. Love, Dad. And then, Claire. I missed your 20th birthday. Again. Shocking. I know. I bought a gift. A silver bracelet with a charm shaped like a tiny key. I didn't send it. It's still in the drawer by my bed. I think I was afraid you'd return it. Or worse, you wouldn't acknowledge it at all. Sometimes I wonder what it would take for you to forgive me. An apology, a miracle, a time machine. I can't offer any of those, but I can offer this. I never stopped being your father. Not in my heart. Not in the quiet. Not even in the worst of it. Love always, Dad. The bracelet. I shot up from the floor and hurried to the bedroom. Pulled open every drawer, every box, until I found it tucked beneath a stack of old flannels and photos. A velvet box. I flipped it open. There it was. Delicate, beautiful, tarnished with time. A tiny silver key hung from the chain. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I slipped it on. It was a little tight, but it fit. Back at the desk, I picked up the next letter with trembling hands. Claire, age. You're an adult now. Officially, legally, probably spiritually too. I wonder if you found someone. I wonder if they know how lucky they are. If they don't, tell me. I'll write them a letter. I've gotten good at those. I miss you. Still. Always. I keep thinking maybe one day you'll come here and I'll get to see you walk through the door. Not as the little girl I left, but as the woman you became in spite of me. I don't deserve that moment, but I still hope for it. Love always. Dad. And then, like a cut in the flow, there was another envelope. No age on the front. Just, Claire, the day you come back. I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I sat on the floor, holding it in my lap, listening to the wind outside rustle the trees. I looked around the room, at the life he had lived here, at the dust and the books and the photographs hidden in drawers, at the fire that needed tending, and I wondered if he had just said the words out loud instead of writing them down, would anything have changed? Or was this always the only way he knew how to love me? In silence, in pages, in letters he wasn't sure I'd ever read. The next morning came quietly, wrapped in frost and pale gold light. I didn't want coffee. I didn't want food. I wanted his voice. Or the version of it I'd found in the letters. The man he might have been if shame hadn't rooted itself so deep in him. I lit the fire again, sat down on the rug, and picked up another envelope. Claire, age. It's strange to write to someone you haven't seen in almost a decade. Stranger still to write knowing you may never read any of it. But I do it anyway. I do it because it's the only way I can still be your father. Even if it's only in my mind. I picture you reading this with a skeptical brow. Half amused, half annoyed. I hope your laugh still starts with a snort. I used to tease you about it until you made me promise never to mention it again. There's a photograph of you on the mantel. You're maybe 5. You've got paint on your face, and your hands are holding a paper crown. That's how I choose to remember you. Royal, messy, smiling. If I could give you anything, Claire, it would be that smile. Forever. Love always. Dad. The fire crackled softly behind me. I didn't move, just let the words settle like ash. Then I opened the next one. Claire, age. I heard from someone in town that you're working in the city now. You've made a life for yourself. I hope it's a good one. I saw you once. I don't know if I should admit that. I was passing through. I saw you come out of a bookstore holding a stack of novels like armor. You looked happy and older. Your hair was shorter. You wore those red boots. You looked like your mother. I stood across the street and didn't move. I wanted to call your name. I didn't. I went back to my motel room and wrote this instead. You're still the most beautiful thing I've ever ruined. My hands froze around the letter. I remembered that day. The warmth, the sudden urge to turn around for no reason. I remembered stopping in front of the glass door and staring at my reflection, adjusting my scarf, wondering if someone had been watching me. He had been there. He had seen me and walked away. Again, the anger came quick, sharp and hot. What gave him the right to miss me from the shadows? To witness my life without taking responsibility for abandoning it? I stood up, paced the room, slammed the letter down on the table. My breath came short and fast. I hated how much I still wanted more. More words, more reasons, more of him. Eventually, I returned to the rug and picked up the next letter with trembling fingers. Claire, aged. You think this is the year you stopped hoping I'd ever show up again? That realization breaks something in me. I don't know what I thought would happen. That one day I'd knock on your door and you'd throw your arms around me like nothing happened. That you'd invite me in. You probably don't even remember the sound of my voice. But I remember yours. I remember how you used to sing to your stuffed animals. I remember how you cried when your goldfish died. I remember the way you said daddy like it meant something solid. I hope someone else has earned that word now. I really do. The letter ended without a signature. I turned the envelope over and saw 2 words in faint pencil. Forgive me. I lay down on the floor, letters beside me like sleeping ghosts, and stared at the ceiling until dusk crept in through the windows. I almost didn't open the next one, but I did. Claire. Aged. Your mother died this year. The words hit like a brick through glass. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't think I had the right. I sat on the porch here, holding a photo of the 3 of us, and let the rain come down. It felt like punishment, or maybe cleansing. I don't know. She was the best person I ever failed, and she was the best mother you could have had. Stubborn, sharp, fiercely loyal. She loved you more than air. You probably hate me more than ever now. That's fair. But I want you to know, I grieved her too. And I grieve the version of you I might have known if I'd been brave enough to stay. I read it twice, the words spinning like leaves in a storm. Mum was gone. I hadn't even processed it fully. Not when it happened. Not after the burial. Not in the months of numbness that followed. And now, years later, it hit me like it had only just happened. I cried. Hard. Ugly. My face pressed into the couch where I used to fall asleep, watching movies with her. My chest ached in a place I didn't know could still hurt. When I could breathe again, I opened the last 2 in the stack for the night. Claire. Age. I heard your voice. A podcast clip. Someone sent it to me, without knowing who you were to me. You were talking about your work, your goals, your belief in healing. You said something I haven't stopped thinking about. Sometimes the people who break us the worst are the ones who taught us what love shouldn't feel like. I think you were talking about me. You weren't wrong, but I hope, God, Claire, I hope you know that I never stopped trying to love you. I just didn't know how to do it without hurting you more. Claire. Aged. I dreamt of you. Last night. You were little again, We were sitting on the porch, and you were holding my hand. You told me you forgave me, and I believed it, just for a second. And then I woke up. I sat there for an hour, holding my coffee and letting the silence do its work. That's all I have now, silence. And words I'll never get to say to your face. But I write them anyway. Because if you're reading this, it means you came. And that's everything. I pressed the letter to my lips, folded it, and placed it with the rest. I didn't light the fire that night. I wanted the dark. I wanted the quiet. Because, for the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like a conversation. I woke to birdsong and the smell of thawing earth. The fire had long since gone cold, but the letters had kept something alive in me, a flicker, an ember, a breath I hadn't known I was holding for 2 decades. There were only a few envelopes left now. I reached for the next one, without hesitation. Claire. Aged. I've been writing these letters for so long now, I don't know who I'd be without them. This one has taken me days. I stop. I start. I walk around the cabin, talking to myself like you're here. You're not, of course. But sometimes I pretend. There's something I've avoided telling you. Your mother asked me not to. Said it wouldn't help. Said it didn't change anything. Maybe she was right. But secrets are heavy. And I want to be done carrying them. So here it is. You're not biologically mine. I stared at the page. The words didn't make sense at first. They sat there, cold and still and blunt. My eyes moved over them again. You're not biologically mine. He had written it so simply. No build-up, no drama, just the truth. As if he had known all along that the shock would come anyway. We found out when you were 3. Blood test. Routine. Something about matching markers. It didn't add up. She told me the truth. It was one night, early in our marriage. A mistake. She thought it was mine. So did I. But Claire, listen to me. It never changed how I felt. You were mine in every way that matters. From the first time I held you, screaming and red and perfect. From your first steps, your first fall, your first word. You were mine. I folded the letter, slowly, carefully. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there with the weight of it. The disorientation, the strange blend of betrayal and clarity. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part felt nothing. And underneath it all, a soft voice whispered, but he stayed. He loved you anyway. Until he didn't. I reached for the next envelope. Claire. Age. I've spent so much time thinking about how to explain why I stayed away. But maybe the better question is, why I kept writing. The answer's simple. Because I never stopped hoping. Not for forgiveness. Not even for redemption. I hoped for understanding. That someday, you'd read these, and see me not as the man who left, but as the man who couldn't stay. Not because he didn't love you, but because he loved you too much to keep hurting you. Coward's logic. I know that now, but it's all I had. Love. Dad. I lit the fire again, more out of instinct than need, and sat by it with the bracelet he never gave me, the photograph he left, and the truth I couldn't unlearn. I pulled another envelope from the dwindling pile. Claire. Age. I used to count the years like a prison sentence. Now I count them like borrowed time. Your 30s? God. I remember turning 30. I thought I'd have everything figured out. I didn't. Still don't. But you? You were always ahead of me. Stronger, smarter, kinder. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me for not being there when your mother passed. I didn't even write that year. I couldn't. The grief took my voice. This is May, trying to find it again. I hope it's not too late. Claire. Age. The doctor says my lungs are failing. Progressive is the word he used. Manageable, if I take it easy. I haven't told anyone, not even Beatrice. She still brings eggs and asks questions with her eyes. But I don't want you to hear this from someone else. I'm dying, Claire, and I deserve to die with the silence I created. But if you find this place, and you find these letters, I hope you'll know that even in my dying, I never stopped being your father. I dropped the letter. I couldn't hold it. My fingers were numb, my vision blurred. I had come too late to ask questions, to shout, to demand why. Too late to tell him I'd lived a life full of empty chairs and imagined voices. Too late to tell him I still drew spirals in notebook margins when I felt lonely. I pressed my palms to my face and let the grief come, not like a wave this time, but like a slow burn, like 1,000 little fires catching under my skin. There were 2 letters left. I reached for the one marked with my current age. Claire. Age. This is the last one. I don't know if I'll be here next year. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe not. If you're reading this, you've come. You've opened the door. You've seen the dust, the trees, the desk. Maybe you've sat on the couch where you used to fall asleep during movies. And maybe you're angry, or maybe you're not. I don't expect peace, but I hope you found something here. Some corner of the truth, some echo of love, even if it came too late. Everything I have left is yours. The cabin, the books, the silence, especially the silence. Love always, Dad. I sat there for a long time, the letter in one hand, my childhood in the other, and I realized something. This place wasn't a grave. It was a monument to everything broken and everything still worth saving. And I hadn't come too late. I had come exactly when I was ready. The final letter was different. No age written on the front. Just a single line, handwritten in red ink. Claire, the day you come back. I held it for a long time before opening it. Like it might vanish. Like it might bite. Then I tore the flap and unfolded the page inside. If you're holding this, it means you walked through the door. Maybe you screamed. Maybe you cried. Maybe you didn't feel anything at all. I've imagined all the versions, but this version, the one where you stayed long enough to read to the end, is the one I prayed for. I have nothing left to explain. The letters have done that. They're yours now. So is this place. But I want to say something I never said in life, not in the way I should have. I'm proud of you. Not for forgiving me, not for coming back, but for surviving me. You lived a life I was too afraid to witness. You carried a weight I put on your shoulders when you were still a child, and somehow, you didn't let it harden you. You still became someone brave, someone with a voice, someone who tells the truth. You were always better than me, and that was never a threat, it was a gift. I'm sorry I didn't stay to see it bloom, but I knew you would bloom anyway. Love always. Dad. I sat in the cabin for hours after that, letting the words sink into the bones of the place, into the beams and the ash and the paper-stained wood. It wasn't grief anymore. It was something softer, sadder, but warm. Forgiveness doesn't arrive like thunder. It doesn't shout. It doesn't even ask for attention. It just begins. It began with a letter, and a spare key, and a cabin filled with silence that now felt like love. In the closet I found a box of his journals. Dozens of them, every cover dated, every page filled. Not just about me, though I was in all of them, but about life, about regret, about the birds that nested outside the window, about Beatrice's laugh, about how the trees sounded when they cracked under snow. He had lived here, not as a ghost, but as a man trying to find a way back. In the last journal, there was a final entry. It was short. October. The trees are fire today. Orange, gold, red, like they're burning from the inside out. I think I'll go sit with them for a while. I closed the book and placed it on the desk beside the letters. The photo of me missing my teeth still sat under the glass. I added a new one beside it. Me now, taken on my phone, smiling with lips closed, wearing the silver bracelet he never gave me. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the ending I had, and it was mine now. I stepped outside into the light, closed the door gently behind me, and whispered the only goodbye I had left. Thank you for trying. And in the stillness that followed, I swear I heard the trees exhale.